quarantined coaches. This time we got the head coach of FAIRLEIGH Dickinson, Coach Rob DiToma. How are you?
Good, Josh. How are you?
Well, I mean, quarantined, talking to coaches, different hoodie, different day, but pretty much the same routine, man.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me. I've been watching, so it's been fun.
Good stuff, man. So you have spent 14 years as an assistant coach, and this is your first year as a Division I head coach, or just a college head coach in general. How's the transition been for you?
It was good. There was always up days, down days, good and bad, but it was going well. With the abrupt, unexpected ending, I don't think anyone was prepared for that. So it's a little difficult with the exits and all that stuff because it wasn't your normal ending. But, so far, so good.
Good. And I want to dive into that topic more with you a little bit later. But first off, tell us about FAIRLEIGH Dickinson. Where is it? What are you guys doing there? What's it like to be a student athlete there? What's the culture you're creating? Give us the breakdown there for anybody who doesn't know about the school.
Yeah, so the very first thing people need to realize is that FDU has we have 4 campuses. One's in Canada, one's in London, but there's 2 main campuses here in the state of Jersey. One is in Madison. It's FDU Madison campus, and ours is in Teaneck, New Jersey, and it's called the Metropolitan campus. So our Madison campus has a baseball program. They're called the Devils. We are the Knights. They are.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. The Devils, they're in the Division III, right? Their Division III program.
Yeah. So we do have can be very confusing to recruits and families because the school is one college, one university. So sometimes we just have to make sure that when we're recruiting somebody, they know they're being recruited by a Division I institution and that it's the Teaneck campus, not to be driving to Madison when you're coming to visit our campus. But all in all, it's a Division I program in the Northeast Conference, very competitive, balanced league that we're trying to become a fixture in the race there. But it's Teaneck, New Jersey is located. So you come out of New York City, you cross the George Washington Bridge, and there's Fort Lee, the first town, and then there's Teaneck. So we are as close to Manhattan as we were at my last stop, which was Fordham University in the Bronx, New York. We are a 10-minute bus ride. There's a bus stop right on campus or train ride right to the center of Manhattan. So all the benefits of being a city school in a suburban setting is basically the same thing. So the location cell that I had at my last stop is pretty similar to the one I'm at now.
What kind of coach are you and what kind of player are you looking for?
So, coaching in general, I will always have a staff that resembles what we're trying to do, but can bring something to the table that I think maybe I'm lacking in or can add to our program. But we're always going to be a program based on education. We're trying to be a learning and development culture. We know we're not going to have a player that doesn't need to develop when he gets to us as a freshman. So my background's in education as a physical education master's degree. That's what my background is. So we're educators and we're truly in a teaching environment, baseball field and also in life. So we have a certain set of standards we try and portray to our student athletes every day, and we're teaching the standards basically. But it is all about development. We are never going to be coaches that say, figure it out, we win with talent. We're going to win because we coached you up and your talent grew as you came to us. So we're looking for those guys that truly want to be educated and taught, and everyone says they want to be coached and taught, but we are looking for that in our recruits. They kind of need to be a clean slate where we can develop them and they want to be developed to get to maximum potential. And our job as coaches, my job as the head coach, is to get each player to whatever their goal is, the max of their ability, both on and off the field.
I know at Fordham you were well known for getting the team running pretty well on the base paths. Is that a style of play that you want to bring to FDU as well?
Yeah, it was at Fordham. It was born out of necessity. We were in the Atlantic 10, and we felt some other teams had capabilities of getting a better power hitter or a better power offensive player than we could get. So we've had to figure out our way of scoring runs, and that's kind of where it developed. But yes, absolutely. Through that and through the teaching of it there, I saw the benefits of it, the way it disrupted a game for the pitcher, for the other staff, listening to other coaching staffs in the dugout while I'm coaching third, try and handle what we were doing, made me realize that this is something you can get. And sometimes speed is valued, but baseball speed in the recruiting circles isn't the most valued thing. It's not talked about. 60-yard dash is talked about, but how fast a guy gets first to third or his steal break time from a certain distance to when he slides into second is not something the typical evaluation process brings out. And I found it to be an area that we can get better at and make gains on our opponents. So absolutely, it is stressed every day at our practices. It's part of the everyday. You hit every day, you field every day, you throw every day. And at our school, you work on some aspect of base running every single day.
Right. Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to endorse you, but I do. I mean, I know you as a man and as a coach, and you are a great selling point in itself. So I'm excited for you there. Just to switch gears a little bit, you brought up the 60 time. This is just a personal question. When does anybody run 60 yards a straight line in baseball? Unless you're in the outfield, and even then, I don't think you run a straight line ever.
If you have to run 60 yards in the outfield, you're just going to pick up a gapper. So I don't think you're catching it. But
so what's the value in that being such a big number? I mean, I see guys now getting more into home to first and split times and things like that. But why is the 60 such a big number in baseball, like showcases and combines and stuff like that?
I don't have an exact, and I think we're getting there in baseball where we're getting out of the old ways and into kind of the newer way to evaluate and do everything day to day. But I think baseball is one of the slower sports to adapt, to change, to understand that maybe what we did 20 years ago even is not the same evaluation process as we do now. I use it, we do it. It's part of what we do in our evaluation. I think it does show a little bit of just pure speed. It's hard to be a 6'5" runner and have zero athleticism. There is some traits of that you're not going to be a very non-athletic person if you're that fast. But does it exactly show what you can do as a baseball player? I think it shows nothing of what you can do as a baseball player. But it's one of those things. There's other parts of a showcase that I don't think have anything to do with winning and losing baseball games either. So as a coach, you just got to find the things you deem important, and some aspects of a showcase you'll pay less attention to than others, I guess.
And so for you, what are those things that you deem important?
Speed is important to me, but it's important in the sense of, like I said before, baseball speed. It doesn't matter to me if you can run a straight line. It matters to me if our center fielder can run into the gap and catch it before it lands. So that, being an athlete to me is important. I value being interchangeable or adaptable or being able to play short, third, second, and first, as opposed to I'm a shortstop, that's what I play. So the way scholarships are, the way rosters are now, it's really hard for especially a mid-major school like ours to go get the best shortstop in the world and pay him the most money, or we need guys who can fill gaps, multiple gaps. So I've always been a fan of a two-way player who can pitch and play the outfield. Right? It's not something we shoot down. It's something we actually look for. Because to me, the more things you can do, the more value you bring to our team. So we are not into the specialization age here where it's I'm a shortstop, I'm a second baseman, I'm a center fielder. I think if you can play one, get ready to play all. And it shows in our practices. We don't put anyone anywhere, and that's the only place they stay. We look for you to. If we're doing an infield, I work with our infielders. You're going to divvy up your time between the positions I think you can bring value to our team.
You mentioned the term two-way player. I always argue that there's no such thing as a two-way player because you can't be full-time at each thing. There are guys like Buster Posey out there, who did their thing and then they would come in and close a game. But I don't define that as a two-way player. So when colleges say, hey, we're looking for a two-way player, what do they mean by that?
I think they just mean someone who, in my opinion, it gives you two options to stay on the roster. I know eventually it's probably going to pan out that one is more valuable to the team than the other. It's very rare that you can, at the Division I level, I can't speak for every level, but it's very rare to be able to do both at a high level because, like you said, you have to sacrifice parts of practice. We only get so many hours to work with a player in a given week, so you cannot hit with the hitters and do all the stuff pitchers do on a day-to-day basis and get the max out of both. So it's rare, but to me, it's still, if you can bring value to us, like you said, if we at at Fordham last year, one of our back end relievers was one of our best outfielders. But if we're not doing justice to the team if he can get 3 valuable outs on the mound, not giving that guy an opportunity. So for it to work, though, you need to be willing as the player to put in a lot of extra time kind of on your own to make sure you're getting at least the bare minimums of what that position needs, whether it be the pitching end or the position player end of it. Because, like I say, you're not going to get the same time that our normal center fielder gets with our hitting coach that you would if you got to go off and throw a bullpen.
Gotcha. So now let's go back to the assistant coach to head coach transition. What is the biggest difference for the head coach as opposed to the assistant coach position? What's the biggest thing you realized, or maybe some things that you didn't realize were part of the transition?
I mean, you always think 14 years as an assistant, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't want to be a head coach. So I was always striving to be a head coach, and arrogantly at times, I think all assistants are guilty of thinking they got the answer. They would do this in this situation. So, I mean, I felt prepared. The coaches I've worked for in the past did a really good job of understanding what my career goals were, and they, in their own way, all prepared me for what the job was. But like I've heard all the time, you're just never going to be prepared for everything. And I'd say the biggest difference is as an assistant coach, I was able to come into the office, and whatever my focus or couple of focuses were for that day, whether it was going to be make sure I get in touch with these 4 recruits, make sure I map out my aspects of practice. So whether it's what am I going to do with the base runners today, what are we going to do on the hitting side, map it out, and then when the rest of the coaches came in, whatever the head coach asks of us, we do. It was very regimented, and it pretty much always stayed on schedule. As a head coach, there's about 5 things almost every day that seem to pop up that it's really hard to stay on the schedule you map out for yourself in the morning, at least for me, because you are now the answer to every phone call. When there's a problem with academic advising, you're the first call. When it's way easier as the assistant to say, Coach, did you handle this from academic advising? When it's them, it's one of your big alumni or a couple alumni want to talk, you're the one that has to answer the call.
Right.
If there's a problem, any problem is your problem, and it's not the offense's problem because I'm the offensive assistant coach. It's now you have 35 guys, and 35 guys' issues are all your issues. So
yeah,
it's very hard to be prepared for that, I think, in year 1.
That's interesting. I really didn't think about that part of it, the off the field stuff that you're responsible for, because these are college kids and you're dealing with them being students as well, and needing to do right there, as opposed to maybe a professional level where it's more baseball oriented than all of the other logistics associated. What's something you miss though about being an assistant that maybe you can't do as much now?
And totally, and more so, adding on to what I was saying, one of the hardest things of being a head coach is going from luckily at my last stop, I controlled a good part of the stuff I wanted to coach. Our head coach let me control. And now looking back, I give him a lot of credit because it's really hard to relinquish the things you think you're really good at teaching and coaching.
Delegating is not easy.
It's not easy, especially when, I wouldn't say stubborn, but there's ways I think we have to do things for it to work. And luckily, I think Ethan Newton and Steve Atkins, my 2 assistants, are phenomenal at what they do. I just have to do a better job of adapting to their ideas because they do have great ideas and great things. And if in the beginning, I'd say of fall, I wasn't so open to doing anything different than the way I was used to doing things. And as we got into the, week upon week, you get to know your assistants a little better. I was fine with Coach Newton. Was awesome with our hitters, and he did things different. We have the same, where it works is we have the same overall philosophy, and that's why I hired him. But he had different ways of getting to the end result than I was used to doing, and I think that's a great benefit of being the head coach is you can kind of sit back and watch your assistants go to work. But it's also hard being that you were in that same boat for years, and you were the guy who got to dictate practice. So yeah, the delegating of stuff, on the field was the hardest. Being able to have Coach Atkins and Coach Newton do some of the day-to-day stuff administrationally. I had no problem delegating some administrative stuff as far as logging stuff with recruits or setting up meetings and all that stuff. But the on the field is hard to relinquish sometimes.
Sounds like you miss some of the carefree stuff of being an assistant coach, where there's more just working with the guys, the developmental, as opposed to all the other stuff. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. And I tell you, the one thing, now listen, it's our first year. It's not necessarily a team where we recruited everybody. You get a job in the summer and most of the team's in place. So it's, this year was a lot about building trust and relationships with our players, who were obviously tiptoeing into it because we're not the staff who recruited them. You understand the whole dynamic with that. But what I do miss, and head coaches warned me of this, but the guys I've coached over 14 years, I have outstanding relationships with as the assistant coach. They come to you, their problems, you kind of talk through together. What I've noticed is they're a little shyer to come into the head coach and be the one that they kind of talk to. And I miss that. I miss guys coming in the office and feeling, and we'll get there. We will get there in this program, but I do miss a player coming in and just talking about things for 10 minutes. They don't do that as much with the head coach. I feel like there's a certain stigma around the position of head coach that maybe the player doesn't want to bother the head coach, but the being bothered by a player and the talking with a player is what I love about the job, is the communication and kind of being with those guys. So that's something that's a big something I have to adapt to. Is it's a little lonelier being the head coach than it is assistant coach.
Gotcha. How did you deal with coming in and having, a group of seniors there that had been there 3 years and not recruited by you? I mean, that's got to be a tough situation, no?
Very tough. I think it's, whatever went on with the prior coaches, that there was a thirst when we got here for, we, met with all our guys and we wanted to find out what's the main things they liked about things that were going on at FDU and the main things they'd like to see improvement on, which I think any leader should do when they take over something, is kind of get a feel for the room. Almost all of them wanted more accountability, organization. Everybody wants accountability till they're the one being held accountable, but that's a word everyone uses. But we wanted to be organized and we wanted to hold people accountable and vice versa. But yeah, it's hard. It's really hard because everyone's kind of tiptoeing around, like what is everyone's trying to learn each other. And it took a good month, I would say. But I think myself and our staff were very prepared every day and showed the guys, listen, we're here for you, whether you think it was us that recruited you or not. I understand that whole dynamic, but we're your coaches and you're the players, and let's make the best of the situation we have. We kind of had a roster of people that some were on their second school, some had been cut somewhere else. It's interesting when you take over and the roster is a little short, you got to find players. And, we were kind of all in that boat of let's prove to everybody we belong at this level of baseball. Me proving that I belong as a Division I head coach, these guys proving that the last place they left was wrong about them. So we were all kind of sharing the fight per se. And I think everything comes down to communication. And could we have done better? Yes. But I think we were very open and honest with them from the beginning. And I think they appreciated that they felt like they had a coaching staff who was going to be here with them every minute of the day, and we're all going to fight through this together, sort of deal.
Well, knowing you as a coach and as a friend, there's no doubt that you're going to prove yourself as a great Division I coach. I definitely believe in that. And I know any of the guys, the younger guys that know you, they think very highly of you as well. I appreciate you getting on here from a different angle to your quarantine coaches today, and I wish you the best of luck, man.
Well, John, I appreciate it. And like I told you, anytime you're doing something, if you want us involved, we love to be involved in anything you do, because what you do for the kids is amazing. So
well, be careful what you ask for, man, because I might hit you up more and more to get on here with me.
Yeah, keep us in the loop. FDU wants to be involved. Things are changing here, and we're really excited about the future of the program, and people like what you do can really help get the word out there for our program.
Appreciate that. You stay safe up there, man, and have a good one, and I'll see you out on the field soon.
Sounds Sounds good, Josh. Thank you.